shoe, and I don't know what the snap was for, but gotta keep this G-rated, and yeah. I feel like a classic college kid, like the vintage type, where I'm in the argyle pattern. I think that's what it's called. I was debating on posh marking, because that's a word, but we'll keep her for now. Or him, I think it's him. But anyway, so there's going to be some background noise, and I'm so sorry for that. This is just a good time for me to film right now. Busy day, lots of things and stuff going on. Got a lot of goals I want to accomplish before the start of the week, which starts tomorrow. As today is Sunday and the work week begins tomorrow. Sad but true. My mom is just on a family call via Zoom and gonna have to talk over her. Sorry, Mom. Not really. She should be the sorry one. But it's Mother's Day, so I can't say all that. I can't say any of that. But okay, this is for week 3 of my English class. It's research, literature, a little bit of everything, a nice combo meal of all of the goods, all my favorite things. I love English, and this is just going right along through my series. So here we are at week 3. I have survived now 3 weeks of this class, and I want to share with you the things and stuff that have been said and accomplished and done homework-wise, learning-wise, material-wise with this past week. And it should be a faster process. I believe, sadly enough, last week was like 3 different parts. There was part 1, part 2, part 3. Sorry about that. I was just rambling and ranting, and I took a lot of notes, whereas this week I did not take one single note. We were in this book, however, I just didn't take notes this time. I'll go back and take notes again. I honestly kind of had to skim because it was just a crazy week, what with my first week of work and everything. But anyway, we're just going to go. So technically I have 4 documents. I did combine quite a few assignments, comments, conversations, mini assignments on one document. Might reorganize that, but just, I guess, out of pure laziness and lack of energy and time and thought, I just decided to combine a bunch. But okay, we're going to go to a week 2 discussion, like a discussion board, but I don't really say comments back and forth. I don't tell you guys that. That's boring, and probably this whole series is boring, but I like to look back on this. I thought it was an interesting video idea, just like taking you along or taking myself along this journey where I'm talking about my class. I don't know. So anyway, this is about conducting an analysis. This is part 2 of an assignment that was started with part 1 this past week, which was week 2, I guess, now 2 weeks ago as of tomorrow. But anyway, so this is the poem To a Louse, can't pronounce it. It's one single lice animal, don't know. So just 2 different topic ideas. These go along with each other, not very strong. Analysis is a hard area for me. I prefer to free write. People tell me I'm a good writer, and I love it, and I'm playing with my hands a lot, and it's probably very annoying and distracting, and I'm sorry for that. Okay, out of sight, out of mind. Okay, so the first one, what you see is a lot more than just appearance, and then the next one is sometimes all you see is all you see. So they kind of sound like a riddle, I guess, and that's not what you want in an analysis, so I really had to work on this. This was early in the week, and then I revised, I edited, and changed my mind with a few assignments. But anyway, so yeah, just a warning, I struggled a little bit with trying to find 2 themes for the poem To a Louse, whatever. So I would love further ideas and feedback, blah blah blah, thanks in advance, blah blah blah. So my 2 themes, they feed off of each other. What you see is a lot more than just an appearance, quote, and quote, sometimes all you see is all you see. So please note, I know that these are probably not the strongest of statements or themes. Again, would appreciate feedback. And just to further explain more in detail and depth, so the first, what you see is a lot more than just an appearance. So what does this mean? Jenny from the poem, the character in the poem, seems to obsess over her appearance, and much of the poem describes Jenny's appearance, her movements, her actions as well. So, a quote, "My Sue, the right body, set your nose out." And then, "Oh, Jeannie," they pronounced it or wrote it weird, spelled it weird. "Dinah, I don't know, toss your head." So those are 2 quotes from the actual poem itself. And then, "Jenny thinks or knows that she is beautiful and attractive, and her arrogance shows in her body language and her movements. Our eyes see that Jenny is attractive and that it appears that she knows it. But there is a lot going on that we don't see. Why and how is Jenny so conceited? What makes her that way? When did it all start? What is her story about her appearance? What we see, lost my spot, is more than just a person's appearance. There is more than what you see. It's actions and thought behind actions. And then the second, which is sometimes all you see is all you see. Now, what does this mean? I'm realizing how these two things sound almost riddle-like, feedback appreciated, you know. And another quote that I'm terrible at pronouncing, I would not been surprised to spy. Looking at this phrase from the poem in a different direction, ... in some situations and with some things and some people in life, your eyes will have seen enough. There isn't much else you feel you need to see. A judgment has been made, your mind is made up. You choose how you feel about whatever thing it is, and that is that. Reading this poem, I think that most people will conclude that Jenny is vain, and that would be that. We have decided not to dissect the poem any further or try to see a different view or idea. Our mind is made up already. Sometimes what you see does not go beyond what you want to see. And yeah. And then just comments, feedback which honestly didn't really help these discussion boards. They're interesting, but boring and usually unhelpful. It's interesting to skim. Granted, I don't like read in depth, in detail, like fully read everybody's comments. Like, who does, honestly? The assignment, the instructions, you read one or two, you comment on one or two. But even then, it's one of those things, one of those assignments. Now, week 3 annotation. This is the FLA poem. So it's just like the type of poem that we're writing. So like the analysis, that's the name of it, FLA. So steps 1 through 8. Step 1, preparing for analysis. The different sections of the poem seem to flow together. And by the way, this is regarding the poem that I chose, which is called My Last Duchess? My Last Duchess, yes. And my D's are hard for me. That sounds so bad, I just realized. But, my D's are hard for me. That was like the most perfect, inappropriate, in context thing. There's a hair here. But okay. So if you're watching this, boo, sorry. So yeah, just like, there's some things that are just hard for me to say, so. Okay, preparing for analysis. The different sections of the poem seem to flow together. And then step 2 is paraphrasing. To paraphrase the whole poem, essentially a man is expressing his so-called love for a woman. I'm gonna stutter again. Step 3 is diction. So dialogue. A poem of lust may be a poem pretending or thinking it is love when it is so clearly not. And then we have step 4, figurative language. Biggest symbols. So the female character in this, the artwork, the painting of her, and then the obsession and the sexism of the man. Literary devices is step 5. We just went over step 4. The poem progresses and tells a story and continues to unfold. Step 6 is the metrical, I think, patterns and rhyme schemes. So this is a poem with a rhyming pattern. Every 2 lines has a rhyme, then a new one starts. Rhyming makes it interesting and lets the reader try to guess the next rhyming words themselves. That can be fun, if you're a nerd like me. And then step 7 is tension, paradoxes, ironies. So the woman being talked about in the poem could or could not be real or figurative. And then the theme statement, I wanted it to be regarding the topic of false love and fake love. And then as I read out loud, pausing at line breaks, pausing at punctuation, and then reading silently, those 4 areas, I'll just touch on those. So reading this poem out loud, it was harder to understand. I don't really like reading out loud. It's harder for me to pay attention. And I read more slowly so that I could create a visual in my mind. And then pausing at line breaks, my feelings loud. So it can feel choppy, can be slightly confusing to pause at line breaks, like at the end of the line, you know. Sometimes it continues. And then I was too concerned about where I would be pausing, knowing that it would confuse me, that I could hardly create an image in my mind. And then pausing at punctuation, it was a better, easier flow. It's easier to read and comprehend and understand. And I noticed that I became the woman the poet was speaking of, and that was very depressing to put yourself in her position, her shoes. That was really sad. Silently, it was easier to understand. I prefer reading in my head. I could create a vivid image in my head, and I could follow the story. Now, possible thesis, and it's weak, and I'm scared to see what my teacher has to say regarding this submission, but what can you do? All you can do is your best. So, can there be love in sexism or sexism in love? And it's an interesting thesis, mostly because it's a question, and I didn't really know how else to describe my idea for what a thesis could be for my paper. Then the revised one is more of a statement. So the character in the poem lusts instead of loves and sees sexism in love. And again, I've decided to edit and change this a little bit further down the week. I'm sure that makes sense. So the original thesis, can there be love in sexism or sexism in love? And then the revised, the character in the poem, my last, Duchess, lusts instead of loves and practices sexism in love. So I've tweaked it a little bit. And then we just have, looks like, basically a page left, and then we'll move on to the next assignment, and I will leave you guys with a short video for today. Hopefully, I'll try. So I was able to learn a lot more about thesis statements this week, and because of this lesson and assignment, I learned that a good solid thesis statement is usually one line / one sentence. I also learned that it is just like how it sounds, a statement and not a question. I was mixed up about that a little bit. In addition, I learned that in regards to a thesis, it is wise to keep it brief but detailed. You want to offer the readers an appropriate summary in a one-liner format. And that is just what a thesis statement is, a summary. Basically, I did not see it in this way before this lesson / this week. That is that a thesis statement is a summary. I think, just knowing, that was intense, just knowing that and linking the word summary to the word thesis statement, or words, thesis statements, statement, helps me to get a grasp of what the main idea or main goal of a thesis statement is. I think that this week's assignments have really helped. And then, yeah, so that was that. And then I'm just talking about somebody else's thesis, just to comment on that. That assignment is done. And then we're basically done, guys. There was only like 4 documents I went over, and they excluded notes, as I will be going back, re-skimming, taking the time to write notes. Sometimes it's easier for me to just read instead of take notes. I take a lot of notes. I find things interesting, fascinating. Again, I'm a nerd about this content, so I really take my time. And this past week, I just could not. I had like no time. 0 time. Okay, so we talked about this thing called creds. I think it's creds because there's not another E in it. C-R-E-D-S. C for claim, R for reason, E for evidence, and then the last 2, you have D for discussion, D, and then S for summary. So you obviously want it in that order. You have a strong claim followed by a strong reason, if not more than one reason, and then evidence. You want quite a bit of that. You want enough information there. Then the discussion, usually you want to bring in 2 to 3 different areas, different examples from the text, like quotes, and then backed up with your personal opinion, stuff like that. And then there's the summary, and that's just usually a one-liner. You sum up, bringing in the thesis. Sum up the paper, the analysis, by bringing in the thesis again, a little bit. So there was that. And mine looks kind of crazy, don't know if you'll be able to see this, but I just based it off of the example that I saw. So you're going to see the black text, and then other font is like purple and red, underlined, bolded, italicized, just to help you see your work and see the different areas, and you can learn from it that way. I think color really helps. So yes, we are in the file called School Things, which is very fun. It's really weird to see my school themes folder just with this one folder for this one class, because I've taken like 15 to 20, I think closer to 20 different classes around there, and I'm like halfway done through school, and is it only 40 classes that you take with all the credits? How does that work? I don't sound very smart right now. I don't know. Maybe originally it was like 15, and then it like the past 2 semesters I just didn't count those, but I should. But anyway, it's all saved on my hard drive is what I'm trying to say, so it's really weird and kind of scary sometimes when I forget, like, where are my other classes? I like to look back on my work because I'm a nerd, I'm a dork, and I need to see, you know? And speaking of see, let's see where I'm at. I don't want to shake. Ooh, okay. 15 minutes. I am so good, and I cracked my toe just now. That was very awkward and uncomfortable. I don't like that feeling. Okay, so for English 314, this was due yesterday, and this was started and completed yesterday in less than an hour, and I hope that's okay. I don't know. It's just a rough draft, so it can be a little bit sloppy and unfinished. I think I did okay. I need, obviously, more to it, more meat on it, but I have a good start, I think. Just like transferring my notes, adding to my notes, and I think it could be interesting. So it's just over 3 pages. Technically, it could be seen as 3 pages. Okay, so the title might change this. Looking at Robert Browning's poem about sexism and love, My Last Duchess. I love that word. I can never say it. Okay. There can be love in sexism or sexism in love. This statement is shown throughout the poem in the form of diction or dialogue more particularly. The character expresses not his love for, but rather his desire for, his former duchess in the poem, being sexist in his view of, thoughts about, and interactions with this female. My favor, it really says woman, but it's just, sometimes I switch around words, add words, take out words, because a stub is very annoying and embarrassing. But anyway, my favor, spelled F-A-V-O-U-R, fun fact. At her breast, the dropping of the daylight in the west, that's a quote. After describing the painting, one of the first things that the character says about his former duchess involves being intimate with her. She is an object to him. Just this or that in you disgusts me. Here you miss or there exceed the mark. Another quote. He is easily disgusted by his former duchess, and he doesn't want her to go outside of what he wants from her. He's controlling. Another quote, the last one that I'm using. This grew. I gave commands, then all smiles stopped together. The way that he treats her and the way he acts around her is affecting her greatly to the point where she becomes miserable. She is suffering from an abusive relationship. This poem is about false love, fake love. The so-called love the character in this poem has for his former duchess is on the side of obsession, and it is twisted and distorted. The character's thought process is stuck in my favor. He lusts after this woman, and he expects her to be the kind of woman he wants. He wants perfection according to his desire. The character in the poem lusts instead of loves and practices sexism in love. And then the quote again, my favor at her breast, the dropping of the daylight in the west. Robert Browning uses the word favor just once in his poem. However, this is a strong word and one that describes his character very well. It is interesting that the word favor is only used in one place, but even more interesting that this word is used in a sentence remarking about how the character is sexually attracted to his last duchess's physical features. It is not her personality that draws him. It is not her beautiful heart, soul, and mind that he favors. No, it is her appearance that he admires. A man is not a gentleman, nor is he a true man when he sees a woman and all he sees is a woman. A man who sees women as equals and as more than just an attractive body is a true man, and the man Robert Browning speaks of in his poem is not a true man. So this is a feminist perspective and view to look at and observe and dissect this poem. So that's just me, and it's a risk to take this chance, to take this poem and talk about it in this light, but I'm just going to try it. So then the other quote, just this or that in you disgusts me, have or here you miss or there exceed the mark. Robert Browning's male character in this poem may admire the Duchess's physical appearance, but he loathes her personality and very being. He does not want her to exceed his expectations, and his expectations do not include her being herself and showing her feelings or personality. He wants everything to do with being intimate with her, and everything to do with her being his, much like property, but he wants nothing to do with who she is as a person. He does not want to get to know her past her appearance. Then the last quote I'm using. This grew, I gave commands, then all smiles stopped together. The character Robert Browning created and focused on for this poem gave commands. He used controlling and threatening behavior towards his Duchess. He was suffocating her with his commands. His commands grew. The Duchess found herself miserable, and then more and more miserable, and it was all because of a controlling and cruel and sexist man. There is not emotional abuse in true love, but rather there is kindness, and Robert Browning's character commanding his Duchess is not kind nor loving. Sadly, there is sexism in this world. However, there should not be sexism in love, romance, or relationships. Robert Browning tells the story of a sexist man who favors a woman's physical appearance over her personality and who she is. Robert Browning tells the story of a sexist man who is frustrated when a woman exceeds his expectations of what he thinks a woman should be, wishes to be an object and not much else. Robert Browning tells the story of a sexist man whose commands towards a woman grew to the point where she became miserable, this being emotional abuse and emotional scarring. In addition, he thinks this woman his property even. Robert Browning is telling his audience a story of sexism and abuse in relationships that should change minds and opinions and perspectives on what true love and attraction should be. So, yeah, I'm pretty proud of this assignment, how it turned out, and that I did take a risk. I'm just a little bit nervous to see what my teacher has to say. I'm hesitant to look at that grade and her comment. I believe she commented on that grade. We'll just have to wait and see, and I'll tell you if it's a good grade, good comment, and I will forget about it and hope that you forget about it and not tell you if it's the opposite. I'm just kidding. So I did choose to italicize one word in each paragraph that how do I put this? So I have one quote for each of the 3 paragraphs with my opinions and my perspective, my views. And I decided for each of those quotes, each of my responses to those quotes, I italicized one word. So the one where, let's see, the first one where he's talking about like intimacy, her breasts were really perverted, honestly. I decided to use the word favors, so I just italicized that. And then the one where he's like, okay, you disgust me, I don't like you, but I love your body. You know, that was basically what he's trying to say. So with that one, I decided to italicize exceed, and then grew was the last one that I italicized when he was giving commands and his commands were growing, and then her happiness was like dwindling, doing the opposite. So yeah. And then again, the last paragraph, like to sum everything up, let's see, favors, exceeds, and then the last one, which was grew. So I thought it was a fun assignment, and what I'm going to do after this video is set up some blank documents with instructions attached to them. So like my response will be blank, obviously, because I haven't done the assignment, and I'll just like copy paste the instructions, whatever, to each assignment, name each assignment, like each document, Word file, and then my week will be a little bit less stressful, my next due date, because I sound like I'm pregnant. No. It's on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Yeah. So I got time. I can be lazy tomorrow, but I'll just do this in advance, so it's one less thing to worry about, and I'm not as stressed when the week does start, which includes a work week. So anyway, thank you for listening to me be a complete, total nerd. I'm just a nerd about these things, and I have to be careful how I approach the camera. Don't want to edit this out. I've had to do that before. Like, let's see. I think it was like the armpit videos. Remember those? Yeah, I was in a tank top, and I was only wearing like a bralette. I think in one of those 2 videos, I wasn't even wearing a bralette. Oops. And then basically I like leaned over and it was terrible, so I had to like zoom in, you know. And then I think there was like a dancing one too where it was like the same thing. So, okay. But anyway, so I will let you go. I'll get all close up close and personal. So thank you, and have a holly jolly good day. Sounds like Christmas. Okay, I'm really gonna go because now I'm being annoying.